The majority of interviews in sports are white noise. We all move on after a few courteous sound bites and a little coach speak. However, the entire fan community occasionally erupts when someone says something that really gets to them. The Indiana Fever just experienced that same situation. The Fever supporters lost it after the team president said one sentence. The story was widely reported. Sections for comments went atomic. The president of the Fever removed her former account due to the severe criticism. This is the part, though, that nobody anticipated. The most significant thing she stated was not even mentioned in the video that sparked this whole mess. The true story that was concealed in the press conference is actually far worse if you're a Fever fan. The excitement surrounding 2025 was incredible for Fever supporters. New coach, new leadership, and the finest free agency haul in years, according to many. The now you know advertising. It wasn't nuanced. The WNBA as a whole was informed, "This is our league now." Yes, indeed. They also have the most talked about athlete in women's sports, Caitlin Clark. Rested, rejuvenated, and apparently prepared to assume control. High expectations. It was more than just a rebuild. It was championship or bust, win now. And they got off to a spectacular start, tearing up the home court sky. It appeared as though everything was coming together. Then reality set in. Due to injury, Caitlin Clark has missed almost half of the season. The veteran brought in to examine the locker room was Dana Bonner. After 9 games, she was gone. Frustratingly, the product on the court doesn't even come close to addressing it. On certain nights, they appear to be unstoppable, defeating competitors such as the Aces, Liberty, Lynx, and Dream. They lose twice against the Sparks on other evenings. Additionally, when Caitlin is on the ground, the strategy has been unambiguous. Play her off the ball, which is, incidentally, the exact opposite of her preferred environment. She repeated it several times herself. Let's review. A title run is what you promised. You brought in the veterinarians. A new coach was hired by you. You're pulling the ball out of your stars and hardly playing 500 basketball points halfway through the season. Fans are furious. And the coach isn't the only one they blame. They are observing the front office, the general manager, and Kelly Krasko, the president of Fever, who is the mastermind behind it all. There was a lot of hope when Kelly, who had served as assistant general manager for the Pacers for 6 years, was appointed president of the Fever in 2024. Fans have been clamoring for an experienced leader like this. Someone with the ability to actually get it right around Caitlin Clark. However, that hope has vanished today. Midway into a rocky season, everything blew up when this tape appeared. Yes, Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston are a core player, and we will continue to add to that. However, I want the squad to be the nation's top team and established as a brand, something like Apple or whatever. The outcry was instantaneous and everything, focused on a single item. Caitlin Clark is the Indiana Fever, not simply one of their members. Fans weren't mistaken, to be honest. The Fever have had a $273% increase in franchise value since Caitlin joined the league. They are now the 3rd most valued team in the WNBA, with a current valuation of $335 million. Indiana had little more than 4,000 spectators per home game on average in 2023. During the previous season, that figure increased by 318% to surpass 17,000. Furthermore, it doesn't end there. ESPN saw a 170% increase in viewership last season. However, Caitlin's games carried it rather than merely contributing. 45% of the league's total broadcast value came from her matches. Only when Caitlin was visiting the area would teams transfer their games to NBA arenas. Ticket prices surged, merchandise increased, and each and every. The value of the league's franchise doubled or increased. The WNBA is currently valued at $3.5 billion. Fans are not exaggerating when they claim that Caitlin Clark is the brand. She is the driving force behind the entire league, not simply the focal point of the Fever. Therefore, if Kelly Krasko claims to be creating the WNBA's equivalent of Apple, Caitlin Clark is more than just the iPad. She is also the iPhone, MacBook Pro, and AirPods. The whole product line is her. And you don't hide that product in the break room if you want it to succeed. You give her the reins and let her to do what she does best, create. However, that hasn't been the case this season. Although Caitlin has stated repeatedly that she performs best when she is leading the offense, head coach Stephanie White has put in place a motion-heavy strategy that keeps Caitlin off the ball. It's more than just a mismatch in strategy. Fans have found it frustrating because asking a generational playmaker to wait for non-generational players to do the hard work is not only a misuse of her, but it also dilutes the product. The Heat looks like a team that doesn't know what they have, the offense lags, and the games are dull. This uproar over Kelly's remarks might not have happened if Caitlin had been given the opportunity to flourish. However, with the group around 500 having trouble defining themselves, and Kelly's remarks, which clearly limited its biggest star, were a slap in the face. Because for more than a year, fans have seen rival players, the media, and even some league officials doubt Caitlin's fame, saying that she is overhyped, that she hasn't earned it, and that she isn't the reason the league is successful. Therefore, it felt like just another leader trying to minimize Caitlin Clark's worth when the Fever president suggested that the team is larger than her. And there was an immediate pushback. It was picked up by Fox News, Yahoo, the New York Post, and the Daily Mail. The most bizarre element, though, is the one that nobody seemed to notice. This press conference wasn't current. This was from a previous week. Even this season wasn't it. The fact that it was from 2024 somehow exacerbates the situation. I therefore watched the entire press conference. You're welcome. And to be honest, Kelly said a lot of things that sounded really nice considering the period and the momentum the franchise was at the time. Supporters had optimism. It was a powerful vibe. Additionally, the Fever received a resoundingly good response on their own YouTube page. More than 950 comments and calls to her. Smart, competent, and professional, and she claimed to be the type of team leader the group needed. Nobody objected to what she said at the time. However, after witnessing the real events, that same news conference has a very different impact. Because there was a statement that is far more illuminating than the Apple parallel hidden behind all the corporate confidence. To be honest, it should make every Fever go away. Fans scratching their head. The main reason I find so many similarities between Tyrese and Caitlin is that they manage the game's tempo, and we want to play nearly exactly like the Pacers, or perhaps they want to play like us. In any case, we will become extremely dangerous if we can find the ideal fits around a point guard like her. Fans wanted to hear exactly what Kelly stated there. Fast-paced attack where Caitlin Clark is in possession of the ball, setting the tone and providing opportunities for others. Caitlin Clark is a basketball player. She also emphasized how appealing Caitlin's style of play is to free agents, simply to clear up any misunderstandings. I would assume that you would want to play with her if you are a smart basketball player and you observe how she plays. She gets you the ball in, just like Tyrese Halliburton. Locations that you were unaware existed. What happened is the obvious question that all of this raises. We haven't been seeing a quick, fluid offense centered around Caitlin Clark because that's what fans were sold on. Not even close. Fans and commentators are going crazy over it. Furthermore, how much tolerance will we show a coach who says, "We're working things out for the remainder of the season. We're attempting to discover who we are." Are you curious about who you are? You shouldn't have to discover who you are. Caitlin effing Clark is a member of your team. It's not only the play style either. It's the staff. Because keep in mind that Helly didn't only guarantee a framework she claimed that by attracting the proper players to build around her skill set, players would want to come play with her. Let's examine who they did bring in, though. The seasoned veteran Dana Bonner, who was supposed to provide consistency, left after 9 games allegedly due to fit concerns. Although Natasha Howard hasn't been particularly bad, she appears to struggle with adapting to Caitlin's style of play. And why is she carrying and glancing away from Caitlin? The ball on the upper floor? Rewatching this clip makes you wonder what kind of part she was promised when she stated that she wanted to be MVP. Ultimately, the way Indiana approached me with all of their promises which they fulfilled, well, they sold me. The league is reportedly monitoring, and free agents are supposedly interested with all the leverage in the world. This is where things start to get complicated. Players that don't fit Caitlin or the system were brought in by the president and general manager, Amber Cox. What was the real plan, then? What was the pitch? The players were being sold what kind of basketball? Why isn't Caitlin Clark playing basketball for us? That inquiry leads to what many Fever supporters believe to be the most worrisome aspect of the entire situation. Stephanie White, the coach. Because you would assume the coach you select would embody the president's vision if he said, "We're building around Caitlin." Someone who would use all of their abilities and create a system that works perfectly for her. After seeing Stephanie White's initial press conference, I realized that Fever supporters will feel deceived once more. Above all, we want to keep going. To be precisely what they are, an enjoyable, brisk, and fast-paced kind of play. So, let me clarify this. Kelly claims that she aspires to play like the Pacers, who are quick, cutting-edge, and centered around Caitlin. According to Stephanie, they hope to play exactly as they did in 2024. It makes sense why folks were thrilled. Everything sounded fantastic. Everyone was speaking correctly. They used a strategy designed specifically for Caitlin Clark's generational game to sell basketball to viewers. To be honest, even Caitlin agreed. She was quite encouraging to her teammates and new coach. But now she seems irritated as well. Steph has discussed how Aries' running points and movements may relieve some of the burden when you're playing off the ball. What specific benefits do you think that will have on your reintegration? Yes, I agree that it will be pleasant to not have to confront the ball. About 94 feet, but as I mentioned, it's my specialty, so we'll continue to do a lot of that. Now, this is how it sounds in the media to argue with your coach. I can appreciate your point of view, but I need the ball. Fans aren't the only ones who are noticing. There are serious worries that Stephanie White either doesn't want to play that style at all or doesn't trust Caitlin enough to give her the offensive keys. And that concern begins to make a lot more sense when you hear Stephanie White discuss Luka Doncic during her commentary for a Mavericks game. Luke is a player with a high usage rate, and the Mavs simply played differently without him on the court. He's holding the ball. That ball is moving when he's not on the ground. It's exploding. Several players receiving. Engaged in action with everyone taking the initiative. It is audible in her voice. Even with a player as talented as Luka, she dislikes offenses that center on him. Why would she accept it for Caitlin if she didn't enjoy it for Luka? Because we're not seeing that. A system is in place that keeps things going, but it doesn't begin with Caitlin. A framework that prioritizes organization over spontaneity. And with that, we return to the video that started it all. Let's be clear. Indeed, the press conference was 9 months ago, and when supporters first heard it, they were hopeful. But it's worse because of it. Because we have a chance to go over everything that was promised now that the clip has surfaced again. And that footage no longer seems like an out-of-context soundbite now that we've seen the final result, the system, the coaching, and the decisions. It seems like a promise that was broken. The world was informed by Fever leadership that they were constructing a structure around Caitlin Clark. It would be a fast-paced assault designed to go through her, they added. They claimed to draw in players eager to play her. Fashion. They said that the coach will increase the tempo and pace. We now have the opportunity to hold them accountable because, unless they were lying, which I doubt they were, they brought in players and a coach they knew, but not necessarily ones who matched the formula that made Caitlin and the Fever successful. And that begs a much more important question. Can they fulfill the vision they sold if they are unable to? Truly center on women's basketball's most crucial player? Kelly Kraskoff can talk all she wants about creating the next Apple. Fans of the Fever are aware of the reality. They're not just fans of the Fever. Their first love is Caitlin Clark. If Caitlin eventually quits the Fever and the leadership approach fails, half-empty venues transport the Fever back to the dark times. Fans of Caitlin will observe her wherever she goes. The era of the Apple dream is over. Even though that press conference was long ago, it recently led to a fresh development. Fans of the Fever are still perfectly entitled to experience it and have doubts about anything.